Welcome to Diasporaa, the show where we share remarkable stories of immigrants from the Indian subcontinent. I'm your host, Aditya Mehta, and each week we sit down with individuals who have made the journey over and explore their experiences, their challenges, and their triumphs. We delve into their unique perspectives on adapting to a new culture while staying connected to their roots. Today's guest is Rakesh George, a hospitality industry professional. He's based in Dubai. He was born in Abu Dhabi in the UAE, but his origins are from the state of Kerala in India. He grew up in the UAE, went to hospitality school in a town called Uti, and has an interesting career spanning various parts of the tourism and hospitality industry in the UAE and in Canada. He moved to Canada in 2020, right before COVID hit, with his wife Rima. Both of them are my dear friends, and the story of how we met is especially unique, and we can go into that later. And this is a unique story because he moved to Canada but then moved back to UAE. So it's an angle that we haven't explored yet on this show. So let's get on with it then. Kish, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Aditya. Happy to be part of it and happy to see you.
Likewise. So, first thing, I usually ask my guests that if the town you are from were a city in North America, what would it be? So, I want to pick on Uti here because we have not had anyone with, who spent any time there. So, if Uti was a town in the US or Canada, what town would it resemble?
Well, that's a complicated one. UT was mainly for my education. I was there for 4 years, where I did my bachelor's. To compare, in not exactly the same way, I would say maybe Whistler, because it's got the mountains. Obviously, not skiing, but
Yeah,
you're not too far away from the nearby town Coimbatore. You're in about hour and a half.
yeah,
So
yeah,
that's Vancouver, and you drive up half 1 hour and a half. You are in the hill station. A
yeah.
small town, things to do. I would compare it to Whistler in a minor scale.
That's a great comparison. I would have gone for something like that as well. I might have said maybe Boulder, Colorado, but I think Whistler is a great example too.
In Vancouver, Whistler is more close to the heart, right?
Yeah, yeah, of course. If, this is for our listeners, if you haven't been to Whistler, you must go once in every season because it's a different place altogether in every season. So, Rakesh, you were born in Abu Dhabi, and did you spend your childhood and schooling days there and then move to India for your further education, or you grew up in Kerala?
A bit of a combination. So until about the age of 3, I was still in Abu Dhabi. So I don't remember much. Then my
Yeah,
entire schooling was in Kerala. But because my dad was running a business in Abu Dhabi, every summer
yeah,
vacation was in Abu Dhabi. So Abu Dhabi was always close to me. So
yeah.
let's say entire education was in Kerala except for bachelor's. Bachelor's was in OT as we spoke, and then moved to Abu Dhabi, and I was always there.
Yeah. I've had one guest from Kerala yet, but he moved away when he was very young. So I'm hoping you can answer this question. There are a lot of reasons I love Kerala, but according to you as a local, what makes Kerala unique, not just in India, but in the world?
Kerala, I think when you hear the word Kerala, the first thing comes into everybody's mind is the backwaters, the
Yeah,
green. I think geographically and by landscape wise, it's very different. For
yeah,
me, being a Keralite, being a Malayali, I think the most different thing, it's always been a cultural gateway. So if you, for thousands of years, it was part of the Silk Route. So
yeah,
it was the connection point between the East and the West for a long time. So there's a lot of cultural exchange with the rest of the world. So it was always open, adapting. So I'm not sure if you're aware. India's first mosque, synagogue, church were all in Kerala. So there's
yeah,
always communication that was going on with it. So I think that spread across Kerala, the culture is a little bit influenced, the food is a little bit influenced, and I think that is what very unique about it. The will
yeah,
embracing other cultures and being part of it. It's very unique
yeah.
with.
You kind of segued perfectly into my next point that apart from being a really beautiful place and a place that takes care of its citizens and has performs very well on all the human development indicators, literacy, public health, it's a state where all the religions just seem to get along. And the cultural identity is stronger sometimes than even the religious identity because in some parts of India, the religion comes first and then you are, from that state. I see this in the South in general, but Kerala especially strong. So, for example, you're Christian, but your first name is not a Christian name. Is that fairly common? And what is there a rationale behind doing that?
Behind the naming from a Christian culture, there is a naming of actually George most people think it's my last name. It's actually my
Yeah.
middle name. My full name is
Yeah.
Rakesh George Joseph. Joseph
Yeah.
being my father, George being my grandfather. So Kerala
Right.
has equal privilege to both. So
Sure.
my first name George is my mother's father's name, and my brother, for example, his middle name is Thomas, which is my father. So equity in the house for the
Right.
both the maternal and the paternal side. That's how the naming culture goes. The name is actually, I think they were. My brother was born first, older brother. He was named Rupesh. Based, I believe there was some actor called Rupesh, and then they were
Right.
looking for something rhyming that. I think Rakesh Sharma or Rakesh Ocean, and they just put a name
Sure.
they liked. And then
Okay.
the second two part of the name was not by choice. It is as part of the naming system.
Yeah. And that speaks to what I said earlier, that you don't consider Rakesh as a Hindu name. We can't have a Hindu name. It's there are more cultural influences to how the children were named. So that's really great. Most people who go to India, they go to the northern Golden Triangle, Rajasthan and Agra. But I highly recommend going to Kerala. It's a really beautiful place, and it's often called God's own country. So yeah, I think that came from a marketing campaign, and it was very popular, and it kind of just stuck, right?
Yeah, I think that it was always popular for tourism. Many years ago, there was a tourism campaign calling it the God's own country. We
Yeah.
Keralites sometimes add an extension to it as a joke, saying that God's own country, devil's own people. But that's just a joke. But yeah,
Yeah.
it comes from a marketing campaign. It's a beautiful place, as you see.
Yeah. And the Malayali community has a very large expat presence outside of India. What are predominantly the places you'll find Malayalis around the world?
I think the number one should have has to be the GCC region, the Gulf, because of the trading that existed in the past.
Yeah.
Before even Kerala was formed as a state, Kerala was three kingdoms. It was Malabar, Kochi, and the northern part. So what happened is there's always been trading going on between. It was easy for people to go there. They found before the glory of Kerala that is today, the lifestyles were much more lifestyles were way behind. I think
Yeah.
from late 50s, early 60s, people started migrating to the Gulf region, which were the nearest, and started. And unlike a lot of places, when one person goes from a small town in Kerala, they tend
Yeah.
to help others and bring them and share their success stories. So that way,
Yes.
Gulf would be the largest region. And over time, now you see in the European world and the rest of the world, there's always a Kerala. I think the European migration comes from a lot of the healthcare system. There's a lot of well
Right.
qualified
Yeah.
nurses. That kind of migration moved.
Yes.
Then obviously IT and things. So there's always a cross interaction that was happening. I think that's the way it's. And when we again going back to, we always say, if you land in the moon, you will probably find a tea shop run by a Malayali. And
Yeah.
I think that cross culture thing was always in the
Yeah.
nature of Malayalis, I believe.
Yeah. And the tea shop customer will be probably a Gujarati also, because you see them everywhere.
Exactly.
I think most people are not aware, even in India, of India's influence in the Middle East, like especially the Gulf countries. I think as late as the 70s, they used a currency called the Gulf rupee, which was
Yes.
issued by India. In Dubai, there's a Banias Square, and that's named after the caste of Banias in India. So it's always had an outsized influence. And like you said, due to the trade routes, initially people from Kerala and other parts of India moved to the UAE and the Gulf as laborers, blue collars, working in construction. But now I feel like they're in every industry and every part of the socio-economic strata. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I think even from the past itself, early days itself, there were traders there were laborers working, all
Yeah,
part of the society was there. And then as explorers they started investing in businesses. So if you see that any any top industry you take, you will find an Indian origin
yeah,
in this part of the world running the business, or even the top, in the top five, there are definitely Indian business owners running that show. So I think it kind of triggered the entrepreneurial mindset. It's a fresh blue land, and they
yeah,
started hard working and building their future.
yeah. How would you describe Dubai as a city? Let's say comparing it to North America again. Is there I have big opinions about Dubai, but I want to hear your first. Like, if does it resemble anything anywhere?
I think Dubai is evolving. every 2 to 3 years. Or Dubai as specifically as a city, there's Abu Dhabi, there's seven Emirates. But if you look at Dubai, was always the hub of trading.
Yeah.
As opposed to many people think, Dubai didn't have much oil when they started off, right? So they were always their trading route was there, the shipyards was there. So that is where they capitalized on the shipping routes. So the
Yeah.
ports were the prime location. And then the biggest differentiation came when they decided to be a travel hub. So that's where Emirates Airline came into being, connecting the world.
Yeah.
And so first they built a facility for the airline to connect the world, and then they build a city around it. So
Yeah.
when the connectivity and the city are held together and the logistics are together, and Dubai shows you what can be done, whether
Yeah.
it's people today know Dubai, the tallest building in the world, the shiniest thing, whatever. But
Yeah.
it is a very well planned city. You would come across Sheikh Mohammed's one of the interview where he points out to an empty land and says, "We're gonna build this." Those days it sounded as a joke, but 10 years down the line, they have done it, and it's
Yeah.
a diverse city. I don't think any city in the world can be compared. I think Dubai evolves itself every 10 years. Dubai kind of redefines itself with bigger projects, and I think Dubai is Dubai.
Yeah, so I've been coming to Dubai from 1995 onwards. I've probably been there 30 plus times, and you know my whole story with the business school and everything. I totally agree with you. It's a city that's reinvented itself. The first time I went, Wafi Mall was like the biggest mall, and now it's like probably not even in the top 10 or 20 malls in terms of size. There was no Jebel Ali, there was no Marina. Like your Bur Dubai Karama area was kind of the hub at back in the day. And my dad's been coming there for even longer. He used to come to sell IPOs of Indian companies. And we had a company presence there as well in the DMCC free trade zone, which I think now has been wrapped up. But yeah, I have great memories of Dubai. I haven't been in what, like 8 years now, 7 or 8 years. I came right before I moved to Canada, and then I haven't been since. So I think it's long overdue. And my wife has the good fortune of coming regularly and meeting you guys as well. So let's talk about your early education. So what prompted you to get into the hospitality industry?
Yeah, this is an interesting story. So when you're from Kerala, education is of high importance, as you know.
Yeah,
So after high school, I moved to my 12th. I was a science student just because I liked science. Then I was looking at my friends. 80% of them are going to be engineers, software, mechanical, whichever. The smartest ones, the top 10 or 15% of the class were becoming doctors. And
yeah,
neither really interested me. So I wanted to do something different because I didn't want to, when the world goes left, I like to go right, or vice versa. So I wanted to
that's
do
what I
something
know
different.
about you.
Uh,
I agree with that about you. So
exactly. So I didn't quite know what was there. I think probably looking back, I might have been influenced by my dad because he had a travel agency. So I'd seen his pictures of traveling the world as a childhood. So then I was looking at the next thing I could see was hospitality management, hotel and tourism. And as you know, I like to dress up. So
yeah,
in hotels you go, you people are well dressed in suits. So I think that kind of attracted me. And then I decided to go to hotel school, and that's how I ended up in hotel school. From then on, one thing leads to the other. Here I am in the industry. But this is probably
yeah.
my 19th.
What were some of the interesting assignments you had before you moved to Canada?
So, in my second year of university, unlike many other educational fields, you have to do a 6 months internship. So, that
Yeah,
I did it in Hilton Abu Dhabi. I worked around in various departments. And once my university finished, I wanted to do a bike trip 23 years ago to Leh Ladakh. So by that time, I think my dad was done with my, adventures in college. So he pulled me back to Abu Dhabi to spend some time. So I was there for a few
yeah,
weeks. I was bored. So I went back to Hilton Abu Dhabi and listened. I was running out of pocket money. So I asked them, listen, do you have a job for me? So
yeah,
thankfully, they had a job. So I took up a job there. So I worked with Hilton Abu Dhabi as a management trainee for 2 years, going around different departments. During that course of time, I realized my call was for commercial side or sales side. I was a more sales person. So I moved around a couple of hotels and I worked for Starwood, then with the brand Sheraton.
yeah,
And then I moved along to a British brand called Rocoforte. Then I was looking at the next bigger project. Yas Island was at its very early stages, Formula One track. I was a big Formula One fan from
yeah,
early 90s as childhood. So this was coming. Ferrari World was about to open. So I moved to Yas Island to a couple of hotels there. I was deputy director of sales for a couple of hotels. Then an
Yeah.
opportunity came with the theme parks itself. So
Yeah.
I moved with theme parks, heading their commercial team for a while, then for the whole
Yeah.
destination. So that is this is 18, 17 years of work concise in about 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And then during the course of time, I met my wife. So then we wanted to look for a permanent home for us to
Yeah.
retire. As you know, my wife is of Indian origin, but born and raised in Ghana, West Africa.
Yeah.
So she's never lived in India. That's when you get serious in life, right? You started thinking long term. And so then we were looking at migrating. We looked at Australia, we looked at Canada. I think we even got through Australia, but for some reason we just chose Canada,
Yeah.
and we did the migration process and ended up in Canada right before
Yeah.
COVID. I'm sure that's a full separate session we can discuss,
Yeah.
being in tourism
Yeah.
industry with COVID. And then, yeah, and that's how my career went on. And then I returned after a few years in Canada.
Yeah. So I'm gonna add a link in the show notes to Yas Island and Ferrari World. Those are very unique places in the world. Let's take a short break now, and when we come back, we'll talk about the early days in Canada and getting settled in Canada. So we'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back to Diaspora on KKNW, where we share interesting stories of first generation immigrants from the Indian subcontinent. We are talking to Rakesh George. He's a hospitality industry professional and a proud Malayali. And before we get back to talking to Rakesh, I want to take a moment to remind you to subscribe to our channel on YouTube. You can find all our episodes in video format there, right from the first one. So, Rakesh, we talked about your illustrious career in Abu Dhabi, and your early days in Canada is what we're going to talk about next. So, I believe you landed on 1st January 2020, and both you and your wife are tourism professionals, so perfect timing for that industry. What were the early days in, like, and I think you were in Toronto briefly before you moved to Vancouver. So, talk us through the first few months, including like the impact of COVID.
Absolutely. So once we got through a Canadian PR in 2018. So we did the landing in 2018 and then came back to Abu
Yeah,
Dhabi because we needed
sure.
another year to prepare, bulk up some savings and everything before we moved. So that 1 year, I was researching how the job markets are and everything. So and my wife Rima has her family in Toronto. So I realized during my research that probably it will take a little longer for me with my profile to find a job. So
Yeah,
between me and Rima, we decided I will go first, give myself 3 to 4 months. We assumed that
yeah,
would be enough time
yeah,
for me to find a reasonable job. And then Rima's job, so that was in September 2019, and Rima joins in by Christmas holiday season, spend with the family, and then go from there.
right.
So I reached October, mid-September, great time. I wanted to be independent, so a week I spent with my in-laws, and then I rented out a place in downtown, looking for
Sure.
opportunities, networking, looking for jobs, applied for many. I was not getting any responses, as you are aware.
Yeah,
So in this time, we started, influencing our contacts. So Rima was able to get a transfer. She was working for Hotel Marriott at that time.
yeah,
So we were able to pull off. There was an opening in Vancouver,
yeah,
and Rima got a transfer. So that's what got us into Vancouver. So 31st December midnight on a snowing day, we left. I remember driving in the snow to the airport in Toronto,
yeah,
and Jan 1st, 2020, beautiful sunny morning. Rarely
yeah,
we get it in Vancouver at that time of the year. We
yeah,
landed in Vancouver, and landing in Vancouver, driving into the city, our famous Campy Bridge.
yeah,
First look around the city, we fell in love with the city, and we looked at each other
yeah,
and said, "This is it. This is home."
yeah,
So we came in. So at least one of us was working. We had one income going on.
yeah,
So I was trying to rebuild the same thing what I was trying to do in Toronto, because I built up some network, but I had to restart everything
right.
in Vancouver. So Rima started working. We had income. So one income was coming. So it was a little bit more easy. And I started building my networking around 4, 5 weeks later, COVID hits. Tourism is the first impacted industry. So I think Rima
Right.
was laid off. And so a new city, two tourism industry people looking for jobs. We had some savings to sustain ourselves. We didn't know what was going to come our way.
Yeah,
Made some great friends along the way. I mean, we met during those times.
yeah,
And long story short, and this networking is very important. And during the course of my networking, I made a contact. They mentioned that there's an event management company looking for hospitality experienced people for the COVID vaccine centers, for customer service. So I'm like, hey, why not? So
yeah,
for me, that was an opportunity to find people from the industry to build further my network in the
Sure.
tourism industry. And so, good thing was me and Rima, both of us got through that job. So we were able to work together during COVID. Rima was still working part time, a few hours. We are together. We were doing this job at the vaccine centers, and then probably 9 months later, around late August 2020, I started off a job with a travel company. It was
Right.
a full time job, started with part time, as in with 4 hours, because travel companies were trying to recover. So again, it was
Sure.
in sales. It was nice. Started off working and things, Then my job became permanent. Travel industry started recovering. Then I was looking for bigger jobs and everything for a while, and
Yeah.
time passes very quickly. And then an
Yeah.
opportunity came back in Dubai, and I returned back.
Yeah. Few points I want to make. One is the Cambie Bridge view. I have songs that I play on that bridge, that because they fit so well with the view of the city as you enter Vancouver. So it's probably one of my favorite views of the city for sure. And I don't know if I'll find a video of this, but if I do, I'll post it in the show notes. And the second point is we talk about this a lot on the show. You mentioned moving into a place of your own in downtown Toronto. When you came to Vancouver, you all again moved to downtown. Was that a deliberate choice to move to downtown and not go to a place like Brampton or Surrey because that's where the whole Indian community is?
Absolutely. It's a combination of reasons. First thing, see, any big city economy is in downtown. Let's say you go to a gym, you're working out with the people who are working in downtown, probably are, how do I put in the right way? High income bracket, senior jobs.
Yeah,
And so you want to, in a new city, you want to intermingle with them. I understand a lot of new people who are moving there. Familiarity is the first thing to go to. So you end
yeah,
up in your own community and everything.
yeah,
And growing up in spending a lot of time in Abu Dhabi, being in tourism, multiculturalism is what me and my wife and
yeah,
everything. So we wanted to be in the mix of culture. So we didn't want to be in one particular dominated community. We just wanted to be in the middle of the action where everybody from everywhere in the world was there. At least we believed that was the right place to be, to find the right contacts, right connections. If you look at hotels or industry, they are all in downtown, the core ones. So that is
sure.
how we chose
Yeah.
downtown and other places. Coming from UAE and Dubai, you are used to
Yeah.
the noise in the downtown.
Yeah. No, that's a great point you make because familiarity is important, but you can access that familiarity anytime you want. But if you're not in downtown, you're not in downtown. And I've seen, you know, two similar types of people move at the same time. And one goes to Surrey, one goes to downtown, and their trajectory is totally different because they have access to, I won't say higher quality, but more mainstream Canada than you do in when you're living around other new immigrants because the shared experience is very different. And a lot of people will have a scarcity mindset saying, my rent budget is $1,000. If that means I have to live in Surrey, then so be it. Whereas I think you're in the same boat as I am. I need to live in downtown, and if it costs 1,500, let's find a way to get that extra 500, but make sure we live in downtown. And I think we probably talked about this like the first time we met as well, right? So I asked this to my guests who know me well enough because this is, still early days in the show and my audience is also getting to know me. What were your first impressions of me when we met that first couple of times?
Obviously, the first time we met was, through my wife Rima. We were trying to move a big, I think it was a TV stand, right?
TV stand, yeah.
Yeah. So I had picked up a, yeah, TV stand from somewhere outside downtown, and I had a U-Haul by myself. I deliberately had to move it 50 meters, but it was too heavy for Rima, and it was a new town. We didn't know anybody to give a hand,
Yeah.
and we were looking for a handyman group. And then I think you may replied back to Rima saying that, "Oh, if it's just a pair of hands, I will come." So I'm like, girl messages in a group, a guy wants to come out and help. I'm like, okay, interesting. I'm like, very nice. I'm like, it works for me. Then you came in, you were living in downtown,
And that
connected, I
wasn't the
think.
reason I volunteered, by the way. I volunteered
So
because I had nothing else going on and I was very close to you.
exactly.
Yeah.
You're living very close. But I think then probably we
Yeah.
shared a beer at that time too, for as a thank
Yeah.
you note
Yeah.
for your helping hand. And
Yeah.
then we started talking to each other at that time. So like-minded people, right? What we think. So I think that's what's clicked between us. And then you gave me a tour of Vancouver. You took me to the rooftop of the library, giving me a view. So I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, here is a guy who's been there for a year, trying to show me. We connect at different levels. And I think you were very entrepreneurial. You were telling me about your stories, what you're trying to. I'm like, interesting, smart guy. I'm like, okay, maybe somebody whom you can share your thoughts with, open-minded conversation with,
Yeah.
and that was it. I mean, again, I think there's no barriers between us to have a
Yeah.
conversation. So it was an
Yeah.
open conversation, and we could speak about everything.
Yeah. And I think over the years, we've talked about things that we have strong opinions, which are opposite or differing opinions, but, we still have really great conversations. Yeah. And so for me, what was interesting about both of you was that exactly what you said. You're well traveled, you've been around the world. You weren't the typical immigrants coming in. I think you did face a lot of typical immigrant challenges, like, you don't have Canada experience, or like, I'm sure that you heard that to death, like being told to you. And you and I both felt like, yeah, but the experience we have is global and it's of a more challenging nature than what I would face in Canada. So I'm actually better prepared. And, like maybe you guys are 5 years behind what we did. So yeah, I'm grateful for those. And I think during COVID, because we were each other's the steady group, and we would be quarantined all week and then meet all weekend for hours, that really accelerated our friendship as a group, and especially with me and you two. And I'm
Right.
hoping to have Rima on the show as well. I want to explore the whole growing up in Africa and studying in France and that whole angle as well. And I know Canada probably wasn't ideal for you given the time that you were there. What did you like especially about Canada though, during those years you lived there?
I think the first thing for me in Canada is the nature. I've not interacted with nature in a long time. So the hikes, every weekend you're going for different hikes. The beauty of it,
Yeah.
the the work-life balance. You have a little bit more. You work 8 hours, and you are so that social life balance was amazing in Canada. See, when you are in that part of the world, the fresh air, the fresh crisp air, the cultural exposures. And I picked up
Yeah.
one of the things, during COVID when I was not working, I found out what I really enjoyed. I think you and me connected on that part as well. Trading. I started doing stock trading at that time because we
Yeah.
moved with some savings, and I didn't know what to do with it because unlike rest of the world, the interest rates are very low there. So I'm like,
Yeah.
so you are holding some cash with you, it's not working for you. So I started investing in those. So that was a very positive experience. I don't think if I had not made that move out to Canada, I would not have explored that side of me. So I started
Yeah.
self trading. So that was their nature. I think it's a mixed experience, right? And it's home some way or the other. Maybe my job search could have been a lot better, but then my time with my wife, my time with my friends. So I understood the importance of time at home and time at
Yeah.
work because I was coming from a heavy work environment. So
Yeah.
85% of my life was my work. And then here it brought in a balance, and that's refreshing for me.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. So what brought about the decision to move back? Was it purely career opportunities, or were there other things driving that?
Absolutely, career opportunities. As you know,
Yeah.
it took me to get a kind of full-time job about a year and a half, and I was coming with a lot of international experience because I was
Yeah.
looking after international markets, and I have reasonable not being very overconfident, but I had a reasonable international experience to adapt myself into that market. But when I saw that I was not getting those opportunities, I started getting a little
Yeah.
frustrated. But I wanted to push myself. I pushed a little bit longer to see how long I can take it. And opportunities were not coming in. I was fine to be get an interview and to be said no to, but I was not getting
Yeah.
into the door, and
Yeah.
that was my biggest challenge. So I
Yeah.
waited, and I was like, then one of my friend in Dubai, I'm like, oh, why don't you start looking to come back? I'm like, it is an idea. So I said, okay, let me start applying, and then all of a sudden on one side I was not getting responses, on the other side I had a choice
Yeah.
of offers coming through. I'm like, and
Yeah.
then one of the current job I'm in that came through, it was a bit too good to say no to. So I moved back. As you know, I joined one of the leading airlines, and with the benefits and everything. So Vancouver, Canada is still home, and Vancouver definitely is home for us. I thought let's go back, and we will definitely come back sooner the better. We as soon as we can
Yeah.
to be able to live there the way we maintain a lifestyle which we would like to have. That is more important, I think. And being here allows me to that affordability to be living in that part of the world in the same lifestyle we would like to live in. And
Yeah.
so we came back. It was more of like coming back to the original question. It was very much a career oriented.
And, given that you became citizens eventually, you always have the option to go back. A
Absolutely,
few,
100% will
yeah.
come back.
Yeah, so a few points I wanted to make here for our listeners. Vancouver is unique in the sense it has so many industries. There's port logistics, tourism, timber, movie production, tech, but there's no Fortune 500 company that's headquartered in Vancouver. So when it comes to, in the context of Canada, specialized jobs or jobs that require scale or global experience, Toronto is probably where all the action is at. And in Vancouver, if you're, so for example, I have a friend he's a niche biomedical industry venture capitalist. He lives in Vancouver for the quality of life, but his work has nothing to do with Vancouver because those types of jobs didn't exist. So when Canada did this whole push to get educated immigrants in, I think that they didn't have the necessary job opportunities and associated infrastructure to kind of help those people succeed. It was like, yeah, you have enough points, come here, and we're guaranteeing you a PR and a citizenship, but the rest is up to you. So if you're a doctor and you end up having to work in Amazon warehouse, so be it. So I think a lot of people who were highly qualified or had like huge global experience, and you're not coming from any tourism market. You're coming from what I feel is the tourism market. Dubai is best of the best in terms of not just scale, but like best practices, how sophisticated it is as a tourism sector. And you're coming from there. Vancouver would, sure, it's a tourist hub and there's cruise ships coming and whatnot, but it's not a Dubai by any means in terms of its sophistication and the pool of talent that you have in the tourism industry. In Vancouver, you're probably better off being in a primary industry like real estate, construction, the so-called boring businesses, which can be transplanted anywhere. But the minute you're niche, and like my wife Prachi, she was a pharmaceutical marketing professional, worked in big pharma, handled cancer brands. There was literally one job in the whole city for her. And I mean, with her mix of her talent and some luck and God's grace and all of that, she got that job. But it was incredibly hard the minute you're even a slightly niche player. And then this whole do you have Canada experience stuff, which I feel like, you're shooting yourself in the foot when you ask that question to someone who's got global exposure. The other thing is the US is very merit based and people will do business with people they don't know. But I found Vancouver was very relationship based, like almost like a high context culture like the Middle East or India, where who matters a lot more than it did in other parts. Like in Seattle, I manage properties as my main business. I have clients who I've never met. And they did a Google search, they called me, they mailed me the keys, and I managed their property. But I didn't think that was the case in Vancouver. It was very much about who you know, right? So, on that note, let's take a short break. And when we come back, we'll talk about moving back to UAE and your life there now, and also some advice that you have for other new immigrants. So, we'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back to Diaspora on KKNW, where we share interesting stories of first generation immigrants from South Asia. We're talking to Rakesh George, a travel industry veteran and my dear friend. And before we jump back into the conversation, if you like listening to our show, please consider following us on Instagram or leaving us a 5-star review wherever you listen to your podcast. So, Rakesh, you said at some point a friend of yours gave you an idea to go consider jobs back in UAE. How easy or difficult was it to be sort of back in the market, not just for you, but also for your wife? And how easily did that reintegration play out?
So when I moved to Canada, I said a permanent goodbye to my close friends and network and everybody and said,
Yeah.
listen, I'm moving out. This is it, my new beginning. I want to make it work. And obviously, COVID was a new impact for all of us all over the world. And then the kind of opportunities what I was looking for was not coming my way. So mid-year, halfway through the journey, I had some great opportunities. As you know, Saudi tourism, there's a lot of investments going on. I had some great opportunities. So I was like, no, I came here for a purpose to at
Yeah.
least committed myself to 3 to 4 years in Angola. So once I was reaching towards the 3.5 4 year time period required, I was regularly in touch with. I maintained my relationships in UAE, in Abu Dhabi and Dubai, because these have been, this is a place I've lived for 18, 19 years. So you have close friends who are like family. Your colleagues are very close here. So I've been in touch. And then one day, I was lending my frustrations to one of my dear friends. He's like, now that you're reaching your time period and you're able to apply to more, why don't you start looking? So I was not one of the players. I didn't want to do that for me. I said I'm not going to come back. I didn't
Yeah.
want to give up yet. So I pushed it a little bit. Then I started rethinking. I'm like, why not?
Yeah.
Because tourism is going to bounce back in UAE and Dubai first before anywhere else, because they were already open to the market. And so I started testing the waters
Yeah.
a little bit. So one or two opportunities came. And with my, you call me a veteran, not by age, but my experience in tourism here,
Breadth, breadth and depth of experience.
with
Yeah.
my experience level, there are only three or four employers in UAE that are the right employers for me. Because when I was moving to Canada, I was willing to take one or two steps down and start off
Right.
rebuilding the place. Coming back, I had a portfolio of experience and
Yeah.
references left. So I couldn't move back to any job. So I had only three or four
Sure.
employers that will find me the right job. And this opportunity came with my current employer. It is the best employer in the market. So it was
Yeah.
too good to say no to. Like,
Yeah.
okay, fine. So the interview was on the highway actually. So we were spending a weekend in Seattle. I think we were probably visiting you. On the way back,
Yeah.
we stayed at a motel, did my online interview. The job offer came through. I'm like, this is it. And so again, I moved back first, took over the job,
Yeah.
and then we started looking for jobs for Rima to move back. A month and a half later, we were able to find an offer for Rima. Then both of us moved back. Like we have three homes. I mean, I have Kerala, I consider home. UAE is home for me. Vancouver is home for me. And Rima, UAE is home. And Vancouver is home. And Ghana is also home. So home. So it was going home. Which one is the question? It was either way. It was home for
Yeah.
us,
Yeah.
and I said move back.
I saw a TED talk recently by a lady who's spent time in the US and Nigeria and a bunch of other countries. And she says, these days, the question, where are you originally from, is not relevant anymore. And what's more relevant is the question, where are you a local of? So the places you described, you're locals of that place. And though I've never lived in Dubai, to some extent, maybe 30%, 40%, I consider myself a local of Dubai because I know so many people. And so, I know the city, I know the culture and all of that. There's a lot of people who come to Canada and go to the Surreys of the world and they get disillusioned and they say the Canadian dream is not what it was made out to be, and then they end up going back. And there's YouTube channels dedicated to this, like people being negative and pessimistic. And I'm like, yeah, but you've not really experienced Canada at all. But yours is definitely not the case. I had front row seats to the whole your 4 years. I think you really tried to make life happen. And that was not a, and this was, I always used to tell you, be kinder to yourself because it is COVID that's, driving all of this to a large extent. But also the fact that you had the global experience, you were not coming in as a entry or mid-level employee of a company who could, do anything. So I do really think you tried. I think on my part, I really tried to get you into Amazon. We had a separate WhatsApp group. And I saw that you came close many times as well, like to, getting something that was
Technically, we
really
got
good.
through the job of Amazon, but then that role became
Yeah. Yeah. And the person you were replacing, also from Kerala, Rohan Anthony, he was a guest on my show a few weeks ago. So that was a pity that didn't happen. So I didn't think you were disillusioned. Like, the new crowd comes in. I think you still got to experience all that Canada had to offer in terms of the beauty, the multiculturalism, and all of that. And, you gave it a fair shot, is kind of my point. And it's kind of Canada's loss that, there's not jobs for people like you and me in that sense, to keep you and entice you to stay back and be productive citizens, because you came with every intention to be one. And the time you were here, you did, I know you guys used to do volunteering, you worked in the vaccine thing, so you definitely gave back. And I'm looking forward to the time where you do end up moving back to this part of the world, or maybe I move to Dubai. One of the two is going to happen eventually. I think,
Definitely, we
because
will
my
move back. That's a given. 100% we will move back. That is home for me, and Canada is home for me and Rima, but definitely
yeah.
Vancouver. But this time it has to be in our terms. Probably ideally have a business of my own in some sense, if
Yeah.
possible, or be there the way we would like to be there. It is a beautiful
Yeah.
experience. It is. So on the other hand, right, this is my experience. It's exactly the opposite experience my wife had. Rima had some great opportunities and great
Yeah.
offers. I did everything, I was willing to. So my point was, I will do anything to do. I even worked for the elections VC,
Yeah.
as
Remember.
an experience. It was the way you go to a new place, you should be able to willing to do whatever it takes. At the same time, you got to have your focus on what you really want. And then
Yeah.
I just keep pushing. See, yeah, again, COVID, nobody could have expected. So it's a
Yeah.
different world. Everybody's story is different. Mine is different. My wife's is slightly different than mine when it comes to job. But
Yeah.
then together we will be back, and hopefully I'm sure we will have our retirement in that part of the world.
Yeah. For people who are still moving today in smaller numbers than before, do you have any advice for them to do better to succeed based on your experience?
Yes. So in this part of the world, because as beautiful as UAE is, as beautiful, we all know it is not permanent. At some point, you have to retire. My dad was here from the age of 21 till 65, and he had to move back to Kerala. And I see how he struggles to fit in. When you live this most of your life here. So a lot of people come to me and asking, because I've done this part and come back. They come and ask me. So everyone, I ask one question, and whether they are in the Middle East or they are in India, whoever wants to migrate to any part of the world, the first thing is why. Do you have a clear why you want to go? So some
Yeah.
people go for kids education. For me and Rima, it was finding a permanent home for us. Or some people do not have that why very clearly defined, and
Mm.
that is very important. If you do not know why you want to, you're just migrating for the sake of migrating and go find out, you will not find yourself a home there. So that why, so there are a lot of people, after I explain one, two, three, for you it doesn't make sense, but then again it makes. So there are a lot of people who pull back the migration plans after having conversations with me. There are others who continued. There is a very dear friend of mine who moved there. For him it made sense. They were doing for the kids education. So the why is very important for any immigrant. Why do you want to go to Canada? Why do you want to go to Australia, or any matter?
Yeah.
That why it needs to be very clear to you, and that helps, that answers the rest of the things that comes your way.
That's great advice. I remembered what I was gonna say earlier. I really like the point you made about coming on your own terms, because any new place you move to, especially where you don't know anybody, you're setting your life back by anywhere from 6 months to 3 years. And we came to Canada, just showed up. And my listeners know this, I was not so much coming to Canada as I was leaving India. So we didn't have a plan. And it took us so much time to figure out what we wanted to do, because I was starstruck. I thought, wow, this is a real chance to reset. And I started rethinking everything about my life. But when we moved to the US, it was with Amazon. They handled my relocation and, my visa. And I had a salary from day one. It made such a huge difference. So we came from a position of strength. So our learning was that now wherever we move, it's gonna be from a position of strength, and we'll take our time and think it out. So Prachi wants to move closer to India, so we always thought about moving to a place like Dubai at some point later in our lives. But we won't just show up and then say like, what are we gonna do now? We'll probably be on our late 40s or maybe in 50s. So I think this coming in a position of strength is super important. It makes your initial days a lot easier, not just from the income and the peace of mind perspective, but also from you have a network to plug into, you have an ecosystem to plug into, and it really, that first group of people you know in a new country is what is going to drive your baseline for that country. And I've mentioned this many times on my show that if my baseline was other new immigrants in Surrey, it would have been at one level where I would have been advised to go work at Canada Post or find a truck to drive. But because I met people who had been there for a long time, like our friend Adev, who they've been there for a long time, so the baseline was very different. And they said, "Oh, you're educated and you have all this global exposure. Don't settle for anything less than 150K, and make sure do you get the job that meets your qualification and so on and so forth." So this coming in a position of strength, I think, is a very important thing whenever you move to a new country. Let's move into our weekly segments now. So let's spin the wheel and see where we land. So this one is called Sounds and Smells. Is there a sound or smell that you associate with home? And in this case, pick your home, be it Kerala, UAE, or Vancouver, that instantly reminds you of that home.
Interesting. Exactly. Pick your home. That's the thing, right?
You can give me an example for multiple homes if you like.
I think I'll find a common factor because I saw your sample questions when we are having, and there's one thing that struck me, and I'll tell you. So, home, let's start from early days. As childhood, I was in Kerala. So, there, what is home is, Kerala is known for monsoons and rain. So, after the
Yeah,
fresh rain, there is a smell of the sand that comes.
yeah,
That is very home. And
yeah,
when I moved back from Canada to Dubai, the first weekend we went for a desert safari, and it was mildly rain and the wet desert sand, and there's a smell
yeah,
of the wet, and that was home.
yeah,
And today, what I'm missing is multiple times we came back to Vancouver. When you get out there, the fresh, crisp air of Vancouver,
yeah,
I think so. It is the same thing. Feels gives you three different emotions of home from that
yeah.
air. One is the
That's
monsoon
great.
rain. So it's air, but the smell of three different homes.
Yeah, that's a superb example. The single digit AQI that you have in Vancouver, I can't get over it. I've been here 7 years. I still find myself taking deep breaths and appreciating and feeling grateful for the clean air that we breathe in this part of the world. I don't think people who have always lived here appreciate it enough. And these days in India, the AQIs are in the hundreds. Like the air is just not breathable. So that makes me feel more grateful all the more for it. We have time for one more weekly segment. So let's spin that wheel again and see what we land on. So this one is called This or That. I'm gonna name one drink after another, and you have to pick one, and then we'll keep going on that. Okay. So the first question is tea or coffee?
Neither, because I don't drink tea or coffee. So yeah,
Okay. So then coffee or mango lassi?
again I have to. Yeah, so because of business meetings, I started drinking coffee. So not to drag this one along, so I will say let's stop it at a nice cortado. That's it.
Okay. So then coffee or thumbs up?
Thumbs up with the right mixer.
Right mixer. I have a feeling this is going to veer towards scotch at some point. So I'll keep going. Thumbs up or Ru Afza?
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up or Limca?
I think Limca.
Limca or Fruity?
Limca. Yeah.
Limca or Glenfiddich?
Any day, Glenfiddich. Any.
Yes, I know you to be a sophisticated scotch drinker. I remember you brought your bar over from Abu Dhabi when you had moved, and I think you took it back too, right? With you?
Yes, so it came from Abu Dhabi to Toronto, Toronto to Vancouver, Vancouver to Dubai, just right behind in the next room.
That's awesome. Well, that brings us to the end of today's episode. Thank you for listening to Diaspora. We hope you enjoyed hearing Rakesh's unique story. Remember to check out our show notes for links and more information about the topics that we talked about today. Diaspora is part of the Speaking Current network of shows and podcasts, all of which are dedicated to inspiring listeners to build lives of meaning, connection, and value. You can find the Speaking Current network of shows, including Diaspora, wherever you get your podcasts and also on YouTube. And lastly, if you know someone who has a story that can be shared on our show, feel free to reach out to us on any of our social media handles. We'll be back next week with another interesting story from the South Asian diaspora. Until then, take care and stay curious. And Rakesh, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Adi. Good luck.